This is Coda Radio, episode 21, for October 29th, 2012. Hi everyone, you're listening to Coda Radio, Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly talk show, taking a pragmatic look at the art and business of software development and related technologies. My name is Chris, and joining us from the eye of the storm this week is our host, Michael Dominic. Hey there, Michael.
Good morning.
Good afternoon to you, sir. Are you surviving right now?
Still alive. I've got my, you can't see me, but I've got my nice hoodie on. I'm nice and warm, thermal. I'm ready to go.
Now, we should tell folks that we are recording this on October 29th, and of course, this is Stormageddon 2012, the eve, really. It's supposed to hit your shore like 7 p.m. tonight, right?
Well, it's already doing a bit, but it's supposed to really ramp up this evening, yes.
And you're like 5 miles from the coast.
Yeah, I'm under 5 miles from the Atlantic Ocean, yes.
So I was talking to you last night on Google Plus, and I'm like, so are you going to be able to do the show tomorrow? And you've actually been told by your local authorities to don't leave the house. So you're sort of under orders from the man to podcast today. If you look at it.
In a way, I mean, of course they can't compel you to stay, but what they are doing is fining you if you're out past a certain time. Yes.
And now you very likely could lose power tonight. So this might be the last time we hear from you for a little bit.
Well, interestingly enough, the power company has sent out more than one notice saying it is incredibly likely for Tuesday and Wednesday that we will not have power.
I'm kind of glad we scheduled this for Monday mornings then.
Yes. Yeah, it's a stroke of luck.
Yeah.
It should be relevant for people listening to this at a later day on the recording that I'm on the Atlantic Ocean coast in New Jersey. Mm-hmm. So I'm basically Sandy's bitch.
yeah. Sandy's having her way with you this week.
I'm not doing well. I spent yesterday literally tying things down in my backyard or trying to bring everything inside.
Wow.
My poor fiance had put up a bunch of Halloween decorations outside last week. I was climbing all over the place, taking them all down.
Gotta get them all down now because they're gonna get blown away.
Because they're projectiles. Yep.
Well, all right. Let's distract ourselves from all this. What are we talking about today?
Well, today we're doing things a little differently. We are talking about. Well, first of all, I don't have a show title, so you guys have to do that for me.
Yeah, we're gonna need some suggestions in the live chat. There's
been a lot of news. So we're going to talk mostly about the news, but also, if we have time, we're going to talk a little bit about software pricing. Okay. And when I say if we have time, I mean if I have power.
Right. If the hurricane knocks you off, I'll just try to smoothly wrap us up and pretend like it's the end of the show. Exactly.
So we'll if the show abruptly ends, that's why.
Right. If you hear me go then all of a sudden the music kicks in, and then you hear me vamping for about a minute.
Give me like 30 seconds, but
yeah. Well, all right. Now, why don't we start with the feedback?
Of course. So we got tons of feedback about our guest last week, most of it positive.
Well, good. Yeah, I really enjoyed having Ben on.
Yes. A lot of people, just in general, like the idea of doing interviews and having a guest, so that's great.
Okay.
Some people didn't like his business model.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's totally understandable.
Which is understandable and fair enough. It's not for everybody. I mean, that's basically it. Most of it was that they do like the idea of having guests. Some people suggested other guests. RMS seems to be a popular choice.
Wow, that'd be interesting. I don't know how that would go.
I think it'd just be a fight.
Yeah. I mean, because, and then that puts us in the bully category.
I don't know. You know how I can be a little combative.
So can he.
Yes, it could get really rough. It'll just be you crying in a corner.
Yeah, with my mic off, just sobbing. Oh. All right, well, it's something to consider maybe for a special episode.
Yes, a very, very special, not recorded episode.
He actually seems to be very willing to come on because, he wants platforms to sort of discuss his viewpoints, and I think he figures, just getting the word out there is good.
Oh, that would be glorious. Anyway, Froy, whose name I'm sure I've typed and pronounced wrong, so I apologize for that, writes in to let me know that he loved Last Coda Radio. We'll cover that. But he does ask a question. Why I do not recommend shipping Node.js solutions into production.
Okay.
I had somewhere, I guess, on my blog or Google Plus or something like that, made a comment that projects that are below 1.0 you probably shouldn't ship for clients or in production. And the thought process in Node.js is at, I think, version 0.8 or 0.8 point something. Or maybe it's 0.9 now. It's been a little while since I've done anything with it. Now, the rationale for that is if the maintainers and developers of a project don't feel it's complete enough to be a 1.0, I just take that as a sign that it's not ready for production.
What about the stuff, though, that is sort of infrastructure stuff that sits at the pre-1.0 stage for many, many years? I mean, eventually that stuff does work its way out into production.
Well, so remember, we're also talking about development stacks, right? Node.js is a framework.
Oh, okay. So you're not that's not a grand statement. You're keeping it
It's
specific.
not a grand statement.
Okay.
The article in question was talking about choosing a development platform.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah, that's making a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. Now, having said that, I know plenty of people who have deployed Node and had no problems. So Node may be the exception. Perhaps the team is super conservative, but just as a rule of thumb, I use that 1.0 mark.
Sure.
I mean, it just like any other rule, there's always exceptions, right? It's not always true. Having said that, I don't know if it's an exception in Node's case. And in this, with these type of things, I tend to be more conservative than not, right? I'd rather ship something that I know is tested and stable, such as a Django, as they're mentioning in the chat, or a Rails or an ASP, something like that, rather than something brand new that may or may not be tested.
Right.
So I'm not saying anything about Node. Node's probably okay, but and again, if it's a personal project, certainly you have more leeway. But if you're answerable to someone else, I find it's better to err on the side of caution.
Yeah, it makes sense, especially when you're billing for it, and if it breaks and you have to come back later and you can't bill for fixing it.
Well, there's also the Stack Overflow effect, right? I mean, type in an ASP.NET question or a Rails question, you'll find 8,000 answers on Stack Overflow. So, and again, Node is also very divisive. I can see the fighting in the chat room already.
Yeah, they are, aren't they? Oh, man.
It's because Node is, I don't know how familiar you are with it, Chris, but it's written in JavaScript. So it is a back-end framework in JavaScript.
Right, yeah. That's about exactly as much as I know right there.
Yeah. So some people think that's glorious. Other people feel that's blasphemy. And it does get a bit rough. So let's just move on from that.
All right.
So Angus writes in to clarify that with the LGPL, you only have to share back the changes you made to the library itself.
Okay.
So it's not viral like the GPL. Thank you for that. I guess I misspoke.
Yeah, the L stands for limited.
Limited. All right. Robin wrote in looking for Rikai's help.
Oh, okay. Mr. Rikai. I don't know if he's listening right now.
I hope he's not surfing. He's been porting the JB plugin to Safari.
Oh, the affiliate extension.
Yes.
Right on. Oh, cool.
I've linked his GitHub if anybody wants to help him. And I don't remember what his question was for Rikai, but you guys should hook up, figure out what's going on here.
So we'll have a link for. Oh, that's awesome. I see. So he's got it up on GitHub right here, and he's got some of our awesome audience members have already helped him contribute to. How cool is our audience? Seriously.
That's awesome.
How cool is this? This is super cool. Oh, and I love that not only do they do this stuff, but they put it up on GitHub too.
And it's for Safari, everybody's favorite browser.
I gotta say, we don't have a lot of Safari users. But you know what? I mean, Safari, there's a certain appeal to it. It's a very fast browser, and it's very, minimal. So I can understand why some people want to use it. I don't think many people do, but that's awesome that he made that for us. So thank you very much. Who was that?
That was Robin.
Thank you, Robin.
Robin could be female, right?
Yeah, Robin could be female. Thank you.
So, the Dev World Hoopla this week. We begin on a sad note.
Oh.
Thor struck down Google App Engine.
Wait, before you talk about that, I want to tell people about something I like, okay? That's a good tease. That's a good tease to hold them. You know what I'm saying?
Do it.
All right, let's tell them about Code Journal. And I think maybe you could tell me a little bit about this. So this Code Journal here, I've heard about this because we were just talking about GitHub. See, it's kind of a good time to talk about this because what if, Mr. Dominic, let me ask you something. What if I had certain projects like that? Oh, let's say that Safari plugin that I wanted to kind of keep tabs on. Could I use this Code Journal app for that?
You could. You would be notified on your OS 10 desktop using the new notification center when anybody commits, comments, or opens.
Wait a minute. You're saying built right into the OS 10?
Built right into the OS 10 Node notification center. You can also reply to their issue or comment directly from Code Journal. It is a full-featured GitHub client, except for that whole committing thing. Don't worry about that.
Okay. Well, what's it like? It's probably like, what, $15? It's
a solid $5.
No. You're giving it away at that price.
$5.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Dominic's prices are crazy.
I'm crazy. I've been told I've gone mad. I have a hat and everything.
It's also available in the Mac App Store. So if
it's available, yes. And Chris, I have to say, direct sales are becoming more popular.
Oh, really? Well, that's probably because we plug it on the show, and then the updates become, and then we mentioned a few times that it's slow in the App Store, so people are avoiding it. You think that's happening?
You know what I think happened? People wanted enterprise support, and it took a month for the App Store to approve it, so they just bought it direct.
Yeah, and Apple's got to turn that S around, boy. Yeah. They got to turn that S around because that's exactly what's going to keep happening. Well, so go check out codejournalapp.com. Buy it direct from the Dominic man, right?
That's the best way to do it. Any updates you need, you get them nice and quick.
Now, one more plug before we get out of here. Something else I like is our affiliate system because it allows you guys to support the Jupiter Broadcasting Network without really impacting your budget because you're already buying things that you are going to be purchasing anyways. And with the holidays coming up, I want to mention these a little more frequently because, seriously, we're hoping this helps bring in a little revenue for the network. So down at the bottom of our site, we have links for Amazon US, UK, and DE. And then we also have eBay and Netflix US editions down there. Newegg's down there. ThinkGeek is down there. Best Buy. Audible.com, which I love. Seriously, have some amazing apps on the mobile apps. I don't even listen to Audible on my computer. I only listen from my smartphone.
That's right.
Code School. Code School is a great fit for this show. You learn by doing with Code School. They have some free tutorials on Git. It's Git Day here, and Code School is an affiliate that we've seen a lot of success with the Coder Radio audience. People are checking it out and they're loving it. So if you want to learn by doing, they have some great courses online, and they tied in with the whole achievement system. It's actually kind of neat. It's kind of some gamification to keep you going. Go check out Code School. But last but not least, we also have our Chrome and Firefox extensions. These bad mamma jammas, if you toss them in your browser, and we're updating them to include different countries for different affiliate extensions. Like, for example, Monoprice is going into the browser extensions. We don't have Monoprice at the bottom of the site because I don't have any. I got to come up with a better way to display all the links if we're going to put everything down there. But these extensions, we're adding stuff to these all the time. And then they just tag your shopping session without you even having to think about it. And that is seriously the way to keep us going throughout the holiday season. So thank you to everybody who thinks of us when they're making their purchases, either if it's for their office, if it's for a holiday gift, or something else, maybe a little toy for themselves. Thank you, everybody. And I think we get extra cuts on the Kindles. If you're going to be buying yourself one of them, their fancy Kindles, think of us. All right. Okay, now I think we've interrupted for long. So, App Engine goes down, and boy, was Hacker News pissed.
Yeah, they were really upset. they took it more than a little personally. Let's say.
Well, I thought I saw them angry when GitHub was being DDoSed.
Yeah, they didn't like App Engine. So so I think the infrastructure issue, or that side, I think is more a tech snap topic. The side of it I want to cover is the side that everybody beats the crap out of Amazon for.
Okay.
So it's pretty much now common knowledge. Don't put all your stuff on EC2.
Yeah, I'd say so, or at least
it goes the same for App Engine, right? So don't put all your stuff on App Engine in one location. Just like don't put all your stuff on EC2 US Virginia East. It's the same problem. They're not the same system, but fundamentally, if something happens to a physical location,
right?
This is something, and this goes for any software as a service.
Of course, you say this, and as a system admin, I know this, but all of my stuff's on Scale Engine.
But is it in one place?
Well, Scale Engine by its very nature is sort of distributed, but
right.
EC2, well, I guess
not.
Yeah,
it's not.
Yeah, it's
so
not.
when you pick a locale, you're tied to that locale.
Yeah.
The recommendation is that you pick 2 or 3.
Right, that is true. So what you're really saying is everybody should switch to Scale Engine.
Sure.
well, no, you're not saying that. You're saying you shouldn't depend on one company, one service. But what I'm trying to point out is it just almost always happens that way. Either you build it for cost or whatever it is, or you don't think of it during the design phase. It's so common that happens. But, here we are, even knowing that. You must have done this too.
I'm doing it right now. I have something in development on the old Windows Azure in one place. That's actually on the West Coast, so lucky.
Yeah, so it's interesting, right? But here we're both saying, but don't do this.
Well, in development, you don't need to. There's no reason to have the extra cost, right?
Yeah.
So before you release, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
But when you release, what you really should have is some kind of CDN. So, and I know something that is what Scale Engine really excels at. being your CDN.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if, I don't like all my eggs in one basket. That's not to say Scale Engine couldn't be your one company to work with. It could, especially if you're like a PHP guy. It definitely could. They're really well hooked up for that. Once you go outside of that, though, the attractive side is really the CDN stuff. Just like with Amazon, once you get to a certain point, each of these services are strong in one way, right? Heroku and Azure are really strong in that you can git push deploy. But the cost is pretty high compared to just hardware. And that's something I've been thinking about. I'm starting to be of the mind that if your core competency of your company is running a service, or at least the core competency of the product, shouldn't you take that in-house at some point? Right, and this is something the Stack Overflow guys talk a lot about. And I think I've kind of been swayed. Some stuff in the cloud is good, but perhaps a more hybrid solution is the way to go.
Oh, okay. Now, this is a very interesting point you're making here, because I would say Apple sort of personifies this. They're even designing the CPUs now in-house.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of mixing the metaphor, though, right? So what I'm saying is cloud hosting is great for development, great for early adoption. It gets really, really pricey and a little risky once you're scaling to a certain point.
I just don't know. I guess the reason why I tried to take it, because I just don't see how it applies in this case, because there's just certain things that you just can't do as a business unless that is your business. Like, you could argue that for Jupiter Broadcasting, or let's say for a certain popular website like Facebook, a core component of their business is serving up the files for their website. That is absolutely essential for Jupiter Broadcasting. It's absolutely essential for a Facebook app, anything like that. But you can't expect them to own the CDN. You can't expect them to build that infrastructure out.
Of course not. Not to own the entire CDN. What I'm pursuing, and not to tease something too much, but right now everything is, everything's virtual, right? Everything's in production. Everything's proprietary, super private, secured, all that crap. If things go well, I'm going to want to pull some of that out of the cloud. As an aside, finding a local shared hosting place is a pain in the ass. I don't know if they all got closed. So I called 3 that I used to use, and they're all out of business.
Wow.
A colos I'm talking about.
Yeah,
so I want to bring my good old Dell server, or maybe even buy a newer one.
And you want to go so classic as something you could even go physically stand at.
I want to do both. I want to have the cloud and the physical servers. And I want to use some kind of CDN.
Whoa, the wind's really picking up there, isn't it?
Yeah, if I die, oh well.
Wow.
Yeah, it's getting a bit rough. But I want to do both, and I want to be able to distribute traffic based on not only location, but based on, let's say, weight. Because it's always going to be cheaper for me to use the physical server than to use Azure or EC2.
And I still feel like under certain workloads, you can still tell the difference between physical and virtual.
Yeah, I feel like there's certain VPS providers that their servers are dead slow.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's bandwidth or...
Yeah.
And it really is a cost concern. Right? Also, if something goes wrong at the colo, I can drive to the colo.
Yeah.
Something goes wrong with, let's say, EC2, I can't, you'd probably be shot if you try to get on their facility.
You see what Alan's talking about right now, and I think this is kind of really the way it is now, is you can work with providers like Server Beach, or I guess they got bought out by Pier 1 or whatever, that, they essentially provision you a good server class box, all hardware, and then they'll hook you up with the remote IP KVM that gives you, the ability to boot from USB devices that are local to your computer that you're remoting in from. And, you get full essential, you get access to the BIOS and all that kind of stuff. But if you need hardware swapped, then you put in a ticket and you wait a couple hours or whatever it might be, and then they get you taken care of.
Well, that might be a serviceable solution. Yeah, Alan, if you could throw that in the chat, a link or something, that would be great.
Well, that's just pretty much how all of them work now.
The problem is I can't find one that's relatively local to me.
So you still want, now that's the part I think you have to give up.
Being local.
Yeah. But you don't ever need physical access to the box with the way they do this.
Yeah, maybe I'm being too old school with this. I mean, that's possible, right? I may just be a little retro on this one.
You almost want something like Mac Mini Colo, where it's your own physical hardware and you ship it to them.
I don't want to host on a Mac Mini.
Well, no, not a Mac Mini, but I'm saying like, something where you buy the box and then you ship it to them and they set it up in their data center and, they send you pictures of it or whatever. And, and then when you call them, they just send a tech out to do the thing you want them to do to it. That's what a lot of like Pier 1 does and stuff like that. So
maybe that's something to look at. Because ideally, I would like to leverage everything.
I don't know if I would advise this though. If I was to go into consultant mode, I would say that especially if you are somebody who feels like if you're getting bad service and you want to pick up and move, you might just want to look at standardized virtualization platforms. So don't be locked into an Amazon EC2 virtual machine, or don't be locked into anything specific, but like go with an actual VMDK file, because then you can pick it up and you can move it to Pier 1, or you could move it to Scale Engine, or you could move it to Rackspace. You get much more flexibility. You could still have it run from very powerful hardware. But if you commit to a physical box like that, you are committing to that data center, you are committing to that provider, you're committing to their connectivity, and you're committing to, if they raise their rates, they've pretty much got you. Because you can't, you could, but what are you going to do? Take that box and go find another colo you can put it at?
Well, so that's a problem you have with even the cloud providers, though, right? They start off cheap, but they rank right up.
Yeah.
Especially if you're hosting, SQL Server or something like that.
Yeah, it does get really expensive. Yeah, I've looked into it. It does get really expensive.
So it's a tough problem, and maybe you're right, because it may make sense that the reason I can't find colos is because they're all out of business.
Yeah.
Because that's just an old model, and maybe I have to adapt. I would say all my clients' stuff is being hosted on the cloud.
It's a real challenge. It is a real challenge because the cloud services, they really are not only are they super low barrier to entry, but you can set them up really quick. You just go set up the account, boom boom, within a few minutes you've got access and you can just start going. And that is so advantageous at sometimes. Like, I got screwed by blip.tv one week where they just started shutting off our downloads.
Oof.
And Alan and I were trying to figure out what to do, but he needed to look if he needed to retrofit part of the Scale Engine system to support videos. I can't remember what the details were, but we were kind of going back and forth, and I was looking at different options, and I wanted to get pricing. And so just to keep the shows going, I tossed them up on Rackspace, on Rackspace's cloud storage.
Sure.
It was like a $500 bandwidth bill.
Well, that's the thing, right? That's the thing with Rackspace or EC2. It's going to get costly.
Yeah.
And I know it's going to get costly going into this.
It was like for 2 weeks.
Yeah,
like, really?
So that's why I'm really looking at the more retros. Like, I am more than happy to pay for a box.
Yeah.
Because it's a one-time cost. I can do the math, figure out, okay, kind of what capacity I'm going to get.
But
then you're married to the box. I see your point.
Yeah, and the provider and everything that comes with that. Their practices, their management, their bandwidth.
I'm just gonna mail the server to Alan. Screw it.
Yeah. Well, what Brian used to do is to solve this problem is he would just set it up on his home internet connection, which I don't know why people ever do that, because that always invariably ends up going out. Well,
yeah. So the problem is my house is like 100 years old.
Well, and you're in the middle of a hurricane right now.
Yeah, and we have shoddy electricity, so yeah, no, I'm not doing that.
I did actually get a contract once because their IT provider had set up mail routing through his house for spam checking and stuff. He had a little Linux box there doing the spam checking.
Right.
And of course, one week we were having a storm and his house lost connectivity. And once their email went down, they couldn't take any orders. So if they couldn't take any orders, they couldn't generate any revenue, and they just freaked out. They fired the guy right then and there, and they brought me in.
Yeah. All right, so you know what? I'm going to have to shop around on cost. Because I still think EC2 and Rackspace are going to get too expensive too fast.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So, and then those are what I normally default to. Heroku and Azure are my development platforms, but in production, man, that's costly too.
Yeah, it's a challenge. It seems like we have more options than we ever have, but they're actually getting locked in at price points that are becoming serious barrier to entries. If something like
they start off really cheap,
yeah,
so that's really seductive, right? Oh, it's $80 a month. I can swing that easy,
right?
And then if you actually have any modicum of success, you're looking at several $100s a month.
If if Alan ever closed up shop on Scale Engine, I think I would definitely have to revert to almost all audio. I could maybe do one video file per show.
Right.
And it would just be this dramatic, and it's just because I would lose any sense of profitability, or any projection of profitability if I had to go with what those cloud engines could do. So I definitely agree with you. I would be very hard pressed to find a way, if it was part of my core business, to build that internally myself, just to keep costs down and to keep control over it, because I would not be able to continue that way. So kind of going back to your original point, as a core business function for me, that would be something I'd actually want to bring in.
Right. That's how I came to this kind of idea, is that the revenue you'd have to take in to be 100% cloud on something that has high data and high traffic is just not realistic.
That's
right?
what blows me away when you see that, like, Tumblr and Dropbox and Instagram are all running 100% off of these services. I mean,
but they're rolling in. See, the difference is I am bootstrapping; they're rolling in VC money. So that's
what a waste, though.
It is, sure, it's not efficient, but they figure time to market's more valuable than hiring, people to set up servers and yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right.
I just simply can't afford to do that. I mean, that's what it really comes down to.
Right, because you and I both are taking the approach of direct, self-funded. Right. You pay as you go, and it's a bit more of a lifestyle business instead of like trying to build this huge incorporated 2.0 Web.2 business thing.
Well, what's really interesting, it's funny how this conversation has gone, because the physical hardware hosting solution seems to be like the odd duckling. That used to be the only way it was done, right?
Yeah.
That was the way it was done, and now it's, why do you want to do that?
I remember when I had to kind of make that self-realization as a contractor and said, I need to stop recommending this, and I need to realize that the industry is changing here. And it was one of those things that literally happened before me, and I didn't even really see it until I kind of just took a step back and said, oh, this is really changing.
And I had the opposite approach as a developer. My first thing was like, whoa, Azure, get push, done.
Yeah, well,
then I looked at the pricing, and I'm like, oh, wait a tick. This is going to get painful.
That is kind of cool that it ties in with Git, though.
Yeah, I mean, Azure, Heroku, they make a strong case for using them as your host. But that's if you're optimizing for ease of deployment, not ease of, paying.
I gotta say, I think it is a classic Microsoft move to be extremely buddy-buddy and to be extremely compatible, and then they sort of, over time, as you sort of move to their system, kind of just end of life those old compatibilities. I go back to, I see it now with Surface, and I've seen it as far back as IE and Netscape, but let's go even further back than that. NetWare and Windows. When Microsoft rolled out the Novell client, Microsoft did this brilliant strategy of getting everybody to switch over to the NetWare client, so that way you could log into Windows and authenticate against a NetWare server, and they supported it for a few releases, and then they started taking it out, and then they just removed it. And what they did is they just made everybody just naturally transition to Windows and then move over to Windows Server. It was this beautiful approach. It's beautifully done.
I don't think they're going to do that with at least Git deployment, for the simple reason they can't. Right? Git deployment is a marquee feature of all. I mean, I mentioned Heroku, but there's like 10,000 other software as a service.
No, now they're doing the new Microsoft approach. This is where I mean we're going. This is also kind of ties in with Surface in a sense, because what they do now is they sort of like, oh, we'll just work with everybody. We'll tie in with Flickr. We'll tie in with Git.
Right.
Yeah, it's good. It's good.
Well, it's good because to be honest, yes, the project is I'm working in Visual Studio, but I barely know how to use Visual Studio. But I do know how to use PowerShell. I've been reading my little butt off on PowerShell. And I know how to use Git from the command line. So that makes deployment really easy for me. Because it's basically the same process as I go through a Heroku all the time on Rails apps. Right. And just to answer Bear454, the issue is that this would have to run all day, every day. So he's saying EC2 is cheap for a few hours a day.
I hope our gate doesn't take out all of the wind swooshing effects when you talk. It's so cool. It's like live from Hurricane Sandy. It's Coda Radio.
Yeah, I mean, I forgot what you were talking about. Oh, Git. Yeah, I don't think they're gonna. Why would they ever remove that? That's silly.
All right, let's. No, I just. You'll see. I'll get there. You'll see why I set this
All
up.
right,
So let's
go for it.
Well, no, I want to talk a little about Surface. Have you played with it?
No, not for any reasonable period of time.
Okay. Well, all right. Then I will save it for some time when you have gotten to play with it.
Yeah, I've had a lot of conversations about it with other people who haven't played with it but instinctively hate it.
Oh,
Which is
okay.
interesting.
Okay. All right.
A lot of my Mac buddies decided that though they haven't used one, that it is the worst thing ever.
Oh, well. Surprise,
Which,
surprise there, I suppose.
I mean, yeah, I like the feature set. It looks fine. I haven't played with one in depth, so I don't have grounds to judge it. Right? I can't say it's good. I can't say it's bad. I say it looks good, and I'm attracted to it, and I will probably get one.
Really?
Yeah, I'm probably gonna get one by December. I would say I'll probably buy one.
To me, what I think the verdict is going to be is that it is a super lightweight laptop that requires a table. I'm not trying to be disparaging because it's not just a laptop, because it also is a tablet. So like if you have Metro things, if there's a Metro app that you want to use, you get advantage of that tablet portability. And I think what I think it's going to be is like 10-20% tablet use case, and then the rest is all laptop mode.
Right. So first off, I like Metro. So discussing whether you like Metro or not, that's just a taste thing. People can fight back.
Yeah.
But the reason I'm buying one is not because it's a toy. It's because I may start really offering it as a contracting service.
You think it'll pick up and there'll be people that are looking for development?
Well, because I've explained it to business types that I know, both relatives, clients, customers, random folk. They all seem really excited about it. They don't like when they hear about it. When you say, "Oh, Microsoft has a tablet," they're like, "Meh." But once you tell them what it is, once you tell them it has a keyboard and Office, that's it.
Yeah.
I mean, this thing I think is going to sell.
Yeah. I wish I could agree, because I don't want to be hated. I don't want to be a hater. But
You are a hater. Remember,
no.
let's talk about the Ouya.
Well, that wasn't on this show. That was on the Gamer Radio. Yeah. Yes. Okay, so let's go through just what the chat room's saying, and then I want to go from there.
Sure.
So,
I can't see it. Hang on.
Physical Error is saying it won't run actual Windows apps, and you see, there's problem number uno is if you put a Windows desktop UI on there, it looks like Windows. Like, it comes up and asks you to install Windows updates, and then it reboots and it says stand by while installing updates, and then it reboots, a tablet reboots, and then it comes up and it says configuring Windows, and it's, does the percentage thing. I mean, it is through and through the Windows operating system, okay? And yes, there is the Metro UI on top of that. So there's going to be then the expectation to run Windows applications, not by you, not by people that you specifically instruct that it's not going to run Windows applications and then prepare them for that concept. But for everybody else who hears the term Windows and sees the Windows logo, they're going to think it means running Windows programs. And number one reason, because Microsoft has been almost unparalleled matched successful in making applications compatible on the Windows operating system. You literally can find applications written in the 90s that still run.
That's not a good thing. That's not a feature from a developer point of view.
Right, but it has generated public expectations.
Right, so there is going to be a bit of shock, but it's not going to matter in the long run. There's going to be shock for the first few months, then people are going to get over it.
I think it also suffers from a sort of identity crisis. They have this touch keyboard and they have this mechanical keyboard. Why do we have two different keyboard options? That's really kind of weird. And there's also the fact that when you actually log into the machine, anything that you need to do that's actually built by Microsoft that's used in the enterprise, like say Excel or Word, these all drop you down to this standard Windows desktop interface. Right. And that's going to be like one of the few applications that run on RT. They're in Windows. And then when you go to do email, it brings you back to the Metro interface. It's very disconcerted, and it's disappointing, because if Microsoft could get behind this thing as a company, and I mean from the Office division, and I mean from the music departments, and really come together and build something, then I think this thing could be competitive with the iPad. But as it is right now, this thing I think is not even really going to stop the bleeding, because you get an iPad, you can get it at a lower price point than this. You get it with the $80 Logitech keyboard. The keyboard is superior, people are saying, I haven't tried it myself, to the touch keyboard that comes with the tablet or the mechanical keyboard. And I just don't see Pages is great on the iPad, and it opens up Word docs just fine. I mean, I'm not seeing the compelling reason why people would go with one product over the other. To me, it seems like the iPad keeps the lead.
I can tell you the compelling reason.
All right.
So the first thing is, the iPad with the keyboard is possible, but because of the way the API is, it usually sucks. It's awful. I know this having written to that API. So saying that you can get the equivalent experience is flatly not true, with the exception of Pages and maybe Keynote. But even Keynote on the iPad isn't as good with the keyboard. Now, I think you're right in that the idea that it won't run legacy apps is a problem from a expectations point of view. But as an indie developer, I think that's great. And let me tell you why. There's a lot of inertia with software, right? When someone buys, let's say I have a competitor. If they've bought my competitor's product, they are very unlikely to buy my product. And in the Windows space, if the products tend to last 5 to 10 years, right? So you could still be running on Vista or on, 7, the app you bought with Windows 95.
A lot of businesses still run XP, and they're running apps from 98 and 95
so
era.
This RT is a necessary move. Listen, legacy code, there's a lot of problems with it, including security, which I would say is the security implications of all this old software that isn't maintained anymore by itself are reason enough to deprecate everything. Now, the one issue is Office. That is not a technical limitation. I don't know how closely you followed it. There have been leaks, there have been blogs. There is a lot of turmoil between the divisions.
Yeah.
And it's very religious. It's basically C# or C++. And never shall the twain meet, right?
It's a shining example of a failure of leadership within the company, because they need somebody to come there and just kick those people's asses into gear. The Office team has been single-handedly responsible for killing a lot of really innovative things coming out of Microsoft.
Well, they killed Longhorn. They're the ones who killed it.
They also killed the Courier tablet.
Right. Because they could not, were unwilling to do what they felt they needed to do using .NET and the CLR.
You've probably seen that demo video of some of the, well, I mean, we don't need to keep bashing on it, but I just am saying, you're right, Michael, it is, but as a consumer, that is not my problem. No,
but see, the other thing is, you're saying consumers will complain that they're not going to run their legacy apps. The only apps that general business people tend to run, and I do not think this is a consumer play. I think businesses are going to buy these, are Word and Excel, which are built in. I think this is a business IT manager's dream. Only apps that can be installed, approved by Microsoft. No desktop apps, no downloading from Chrome, no downloading from Firefox. And this is like the iPad Plus. It actually comes with Excel, which they need. Right? I think you're underestimating how important Excel is. I mean, and maybe this is just because of the type of companies I work with.
No, you're making a very good point. It is sort of like everything. It is sort of like some of the benefits of Windows without the risk of malware and whatnot.
Because I can tell you, I can think of 4 of my clients off the top of my head. If we deleted Excel on all their computers, they'd have to shut down until we reinstalled it. It is the app that runs their business.
Why Surface RT over Surface Pro, which will have the x86 processor?
Yeah, that's where I get a little confused. I don't know why there is a Surface Pro, because to me, Surface Pro just gives you all the problems of old Windows.
I think the reason why there's a Surface Pro and a Surface RT is the same reason why there's 2 different types of keyboard covers.
Cost?
No, they can't commit to anything. And they have these internal divisions, and nobody just declares somebody a winner, and we're doing only this, and we're going to focus on this and make this really great. There's nobody doing that, just like there's nobody saying, you have to do this, Office team.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you've played. I can't say how it runs because I haven't played with it. I don't know if you have.
What, a Surface?
Yeah, and no. I don't think the Pro ones exist yet, right?
Nope, they don't. Not yet. But I am sort of a little more excited about the Pro one, because I do, if I am going to use a tablet like this, I would want to run Windows apps. I'd want to run Putty. I'd want to run a lot of. There are some great tool sets available for Windows that I'd want to be able to run on a tablet like this.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, listen, from the developer point of view, it is very likely that this is going to get a good portion of the market just based on IT shops. IT divisions in Windows shops buying them.
Maybe. Boy, it'd be interesting. Because the iPad's running away with even in IT right now. I mean, you see what they say, 97%.
Yeah, it's doing okay, but it's getting in there, but against the will of the IT manager, at least in every case I've seen.
I think part of what I've liked about that is finally I feel like IT has gotten too much control over business even throughout, and that too many decisions are allowed to be made either directly or indirectly by IT.
Well, because I know plenty of IT managers that would have opted for this.
Yeah.
I
think you might. I think this is definitely a good enterprise play, and I think it could see some real traction there. Consumer market, I think, I think here in Washington State, I think it's going to do really well because there's sort of like a home pride about Microsoft here in our state. But
and listen, we could be wrong. I mean, I seem to remember a few Linux action shows when the iPad came out where you guys were like, totally a failure.
Really?
Yeah, you guys were pretty negative, if I recall.
Oh wow, I'd love to hear clips of that. I love it when I'm wrong about that stuff because it happens so rarely.
And I was like that. Yeah, happens so rarely. Talk to me when I get my Ouya doing it. No, I thought the iPad was a terrible idea. Someone had to get me one for me to.
I probably said something like it looks like a sized up iPod or something.
That's what I said. What's the point?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
kind of what I'm saying about the iPad Mini now.
The iPad Mini, the price point just isn't right. I'm sorry, but.
So do you agree that likely $329 US? What were you expecting? What were you expecting?
I wanted to see 250, but I knew, given their desire for ridiculous margins, that it was going to be 300. But even 299, I thought, okay, that's $100 premium over Android. All right, people will accept that.
That's kind of I was thinking 299.
That extra $30 just seems like they figured 50 would be too much. Like it just seems like a weird number to add.
It must be the premium. They really are trying to, with that polished bevel. What do you call that? The edge bezel. That's kind of a jewelry almost look to it. Maybe that's what they're trying to do with this.
Well, they're obviously positioning themselves. I mean, it feels like they're getting ready to lose market share, but they're getting ready to say, we're not going to be the dominant player forever, but we are going to be the luxury player. So we're going to make more money per unit by a huge margin, but we're going to go below 50%. And I think that's what's going to happen.
I agree. I completely think that's what it is. Is they see that their competitors are willing to sell at cost or even lose money on stuff, and they're not willing to do it.
So they're selling well above normal industry margins. You have to keep that in mind.
Well,
they're not selling. Yeah,
I know, and I think their stock took a dive because I think the stock market wanted them to take the kill shot. I mean, if Apple would have come in with a 7-inch tablet at $199, I think they would have taken a lot of wind out of the Android sales. I don't think they would have destroyed it, but I think they would have done a devastating blow.
It's also important to note they announced it, and then they made the pre-order day the day the Surface launched.
Yeah,
which I found really interesting. So I thought this was a play against Android. I don't think they care about Android because they never cared about the low-end market. I think they're worried about people who may. I think they're worried about IT. I think they're worried about enterprise. People who may go with remember maybe not the Surface, but other Microsoft tablets.
Huh?
Because again, the consumer market's very sexy. You make all your money on the IT side, on the enterprise side. For the most part, right? These devices, you're better off buying in bulk. You're better off in the education field, which has traditionally been a stalwart for Apple. But now they have more competition there than they ever did before.
They really the 7-inch tablet is though well, it already has sold really well, right? It already has sold well, I suppose. They haven't made.
Of course, I mean, for the next 5 years, any Apple release is going to sell well.
I think the thing we're not addressing with all of this conversation is the apps are way better on the iPad. I mean, when you want to talk about Windows Phone or Android and iPhone, I think we have a fair fight there. When you talk about tablet apps, Some of the apps on the iPad are like desktop quality applications now. Like Downcast on the iPad is an amazing podcast catcher. It was really good. There's some really, really, really good applications. And don't you think that's what's going to drive the purchases? Is there's an amazing app for that I need for my business, and those are a lot of those already out there, and those only run on iPads.
Currently, yes. Now, so there's no technical reason for that, right? I mean, I've developed for Android and an iPad, and I'm currently I've been playing with RT for ever since they released the beta stuff. There's no reason. It's not inherent to Cocoa. It's not something in Cocoa Touch that makes it better. It's cultural to a point.
Well, I mean, come on. Let's be fair. iOS has some system-level features that even Android still sort of lacks to catch up.
No. I mean, intents on Android are far superior to anything on iOS.
All right, but let's talk about building an application that integrates a live video stream. I mean, iOS hands down makes that a lot easier, and they have for years now. And then there are certain I mean, they've had the best mobile browser since day one.
Okay, and core data attached to iCloud usually doesn't work.
Okay, I mean, they have major deficiencies too. Yes,
not core data. iCloud doesn't work. Game Center often doesn't work.
Well, yeah, yeah.
I mean, certain vendors are. Okay, how about this? Anything GUI and client side, Apple tends to be better at. Anything cloud, Apple tends to screw up. Yeah. Microsoft, I'm very interested to see what they do because they're this weird half and half. Google, awesome on the cloud. Almost all their database APIs work. Their UI tools suck. I mean, I hate to say it, but they suck. I mean, there's no way around it. Doing a nice UI in Android, it's far more work than it needs to be.
I guess you got to figure too. If we're talking about the enterprise for this stuff, I mean, it almost comes down to just iPad and the Surface, right? Because I mean, surely those guys are going to target for the Surface.
Well, so the other thing is with all these, at least my customers, Android is scary because of all those, and you may say they're alarmists, but all those headlines about Android worms, Android Trojans, they're not deploying Android anytime soon.
Yeah, but there was all that same stuff about Windows, right? Windows still had a good leg
up. But they've already internalized the risk of Windows. The IT managers have been working on Windows for 10 plus years. Many of them hate Apple just because they hate them. So I think that the Surface is going to be the dark horse, only because there are so many Windows shops. I mean, I know, the audience, you guys hear about Linux servers, Canonical servers, Red Hat servers, whatever. I often end up interacting with Windows Server 2003. It's just so common.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. It really is common, right? And think about it. If you're the IT manager, do you want to have to learn the whole Apple way of doing things, or would you take the thing you know? And that's going to be what it comes down to, I think. Now, to me, the iPad Mini, I think, and I have no knowledge on this, the reason it's so expensive is because the play is not really the consumer, but the education market. I'd be willing to bet they sell it at a cut price to schools and to colleges. I think that play is about education.
Yeah, the Surface has, because it's Windows, it has multiple accounts. And with that keyboard cover, that actually would be really great for education because a huge barrier to entry for the iPad is multi-logins at schools because you can't, students, between classes, if one student's in an app, then when the next student comes in, when they hit app, it resumes all of that other previous student's stuff. It's all there, and it's all there. They're all the same storage. It's all shared, and it's a mess. And teachers are going crazy with this stuff. But with Surface, with those multi-login accounts, that solves the problem right there. And they're all buying these iPads for schools now with keyboards too.
And I Apple traditionally has dominated the education market, and I think they do not want to lose that. Because if you can teach, especially young kids, my brother, he's 5. He doesn't know what a Game Boy is, but he knows what an iPad is. He loves the iPad. I gave him one of my old ones.
Yeah, kids love the iPad.
He loves it, and I think a great example. My mother has a Nook tablet. He calls it the the bad iPad.
Yep.
Or something like that.
I have a Galaxy 7 tab, and both my kids do not like it. They love the
love
iPad.
the iPad.
Yep.
And that's the thing. It's really. And I use my iPad Retina every night. Or whatever, iPad 3, which they just updated 5 months out. Those bastards. But I think we're a little off. We're into more just the consumer side and not the developer side. The good thing is with the Mini, you don't have to change anything, right? If you have an iPad app and you followed the guidelines, that's a big asterisk. It should just scale down correctly.
Which is really quite nice.
Which is really, really clever.
And like, if you have an app that calls the camera, it very likely will just work fine and call the iPad camera, right?
Just remember, that API is an abstraction, so it just does it.
That's I think it's so nice just not to have to worry as a consumer. If I have this phone one day and then I get this new phone the next day, all of the same stuff just works exactly the way I expect.
Right. So one thing I'm doing now, right, is because the iPhone 5 and the new iPod Touch, I'm sorry, that different screen, I have to update people's apps for that to get rid of those nasty black bars.
Oh yeah, right.
The iPad versions, I don't have to worry about, which is great. And I think we've hammered this to death. The only other thing I'd like to mention on the release side is, Apple released more Retina MacBooks, which makes me sad.
Oh,
mainly because I don't like the idea of Retina desktops just yet, or laptops just yet.
Really?
Because I think what's going to happen is web developers are going to start adding higher res assets to their sites, and it's just going to slow down everything.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. Yeah.
And I don't see the need for it. Like, I have a 27-inch cinema display here, obviously not Retina. I can't see a pixel on my screen. So
yeah, I'm not rushing to jump to it myself. Yeah.
But so, Chris, let's talk about depression.
Oh, all right. Developer depression.
So this was a fairly popular article, I think the end of last week. Or I'm sorry, the beginning, the end of last week, beginning of last week, whatever. Now, I'm not going to summarize it or go into it in too much detail. But basically, the Next Web wrote this article up about developer depression and why, we kind of have a reputation of being a bit rough, right? A bit snappy or a bit down. And they've actually taken a look at what causes it. And a lot of it's like, don't sit at your computer for 6 hours, take a break. So Pomodoro technique. Go out with friends and family. Basically stuff we talked about. When was it? On the Burnout episode? Was that like episode 8?
Was it that long ago? No.
It's been a while. This is episode 21. The show is legal. Let's get it at a vodka tonic.
Yeah, we should have been drinking for episode 21.
No, I might have to run.
Yeah. You know what? I'll look it up while you talk about it.
So I just thought this would be a great thing. First of all, it got very popular on Hacker News. And I know I've got emails from some of you that you're kind of having a bad time. And they talk about some of the reasons you've all expressed. Being forced into a stack you don't like, long hours, no breaks. I remember one story someone wrote in about being forced to work with a totally broken PHP implementation. So just take a read at this, see if there's any way you can improve your life. Because honestly, we all love software, but it's just a job at some point, right? You need to have a life.
Yeah.
And Chris is telling us this episode 16.
Mm-hmm.
Burn, Baby, Burnout. Ooh, good title. All right, so more sad news. Zynga decided to get rid of most of or a large portion of their staff. Move your cursor.
And they were, oh, sorry about that. They were sneaky about it too.
Yeah, so they did it right on the Apple iPad announcement so it wouldn't get press. I don't really know what to say.
They've been having a really tough time.
Well, I've always questioned, I never understood how they did well.
Yeah, right.
Because honestly, their business model seems odd. Take a successful product and make a shitty version of it. Isn't the idea take up someone's bad product and make a good version of it?
Well, and talk about having a core component of your business dependent on somebody else. They're completely dependent on Facebook. And when Facebook made the spammy changes, I believe this is really what was the beginning of the end for Zynga, is when Facebook put all that spammy stuff in the upper little ticker timeline thing. Nobody sees that anymore, and so nobody's clicking on those links.
And the other thing is, Zuck is not a business partner I would want to have.
Right.
He's very rough, right? I mean, I'm sure Facebook knew what this would do to Zynga, and they did it for the users, and they're probably right. But you know, it's definitely a blow to social gaming and to that, and I would even say it's probably going to be a blow to HTML5 development because love them or hate them, but they have been doing a lot in that space.
Well, I just don't get this obsession with getting so big and making yourself so big. Why are people doing this? If they would have stayed lean and tight and small and focused, then when this happened, they wouldn't have had all of this overhead that's now causing them to have to do all these massive layoffs. I mean, can you believe how many freaking employees they've had? I mean, this is not the first round of large layoffs. They've laid off hundreds.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I have no intimate knowledge of how they run their business. I would say they're like everybody else. I read the articles about their rise to success. I would say I didn't quite understand. That's an issue I often have with some of these startups. I don't see the fundamentals.
Mm-hmm.
Like the core business fundamentals. Okay, your operating costs are this. You're paying X in salaries. Your revenue is Y. Is your revenue enough above X that the owners and the investors can all walk away and be happy, or is it not? The other side is, they had investors, right? And then did they go public? I believe they did, didn't they?
I don't remember.
Either way, I feel, obviously they've done bad things, right? They copied games. It's incredibly likely that they broke copyright laws several times in some of their more shameless clones.
They were so shameless.
I mean, didn't they get sued by EA because they just straight up copied The Sims?
I think I don't remember who it was they got sued by, but geez,
well, I know they got sued for they robbed an indie game, and they had to back off.
Oh, really?
They got because the indie guy had a lawyer, and he got a lot of press, and it was just a big stink. And it was a shameless copy. Like the color palette was almost the same.
No class.
It was down to that. It was, yeah. It wasn't even like you could say, "Oh, well, you inspired us." It was more like we saw you were making money. It was like awful.
Oh, I like that money you're making there. Let me try that.
Yeah. Now the chat room's telling us that they did go public, and maybe that's the problem, right?
Yeah.
Because at some point they obviously were making money.
Yeah.
But maybe the pressure to keep increasing the profit margin, keep increasing the revenue. Because games are fickle, right? A game will do well for a month, and that's it.
Well, and
then
I think we should reflect on how well Zynga was doing for a period of time. They were doing so well that they were sort of the thing that I think really people started looking at Facebook differently because Zynga was making so much money and growing.
Yeah, I mean they opened up the field of social gaming to the masses. I mean you really can't say enough in terms of what they did for Joe Consumer. I would say when they started talking about having real money gambling as a possible business model, if I had stock, I would have been concerned, right? Because A, it's a felony in the United States. They will arrest you and throw your ass in federal prison because it's against the wire fraud laws here. B, there are a American company, and to my knowledge, there are already British companies doing that in the UK where it's legal. So how is that a viable new business model? I'm sure you read it in TechCrunch. They had their big business plan, and the guy writing the article, oh, but none of this is legal in the U.S. yet, so they can't do it. I mean, maybe
they knew something we didn't know. Maybe they knew something was going to change.
I'm sure it will eventually be legal, but Congress, the government moves slow. Like basing your public company on an illegitimate business is
foolish.
It just seems like a desperate move, and obviously Facebook didn't do them any favors. And maybe that's maybe the lesson here is not anything about illicit business models. Maybe it's about if you're totally dependent on one partner, you need a divorce. Like, if their business can't exist without Facebook's goodwill, then their business doesn't exist. Maybe that's what it is for everybody to learn. I mean, maybe it's, think about the Twitter client developers who are now running around with their heads cut off.
Yes.
Yeah, this might be just the same story.
Like, are you thinking of our friends over at Tweetbot who released a $20 Mac app supposedly because of the Twitter limitations?
Now, so yeah, I did not buy Tweetbot for Mac because I'm not that hardcore on my tweeting, it's $20. It is a very good looking and I'm told very full featured Twitter client for Mac.
Okay.
I have friends who bought it and love it, so I'm not going to say it's bad. I'm sure it's actually very, very good. They make excellent software. I have bought most of their other products, and they're great.
No, it does look nice.
Like, I've never had a problem. They all work as expected. If you have a problem, they are super responsive to you. Really a good company. But they're charging $20 for a Twitter client.
Yeah.
And I read their blog post, and they say it's because of the new Twitter off-key restrictions.
Okay.
So I kind of got off on a tangent with that. I didn't do anything, but I kind of started reflecting on, well, I understand $20 for Twitter clients really high. I mean, but why does $20 for a piece of software seem high in itself? Because I don't know, Chris. I mean, maybe I'm being retro again. I remember paying thousands of dollars or $1,500 for software.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When I decided to make Jupiter Broadcasting legit, so I bought Final Cut. Yeah, it was back when it was like $1,500. Yeah.
I remember paying for an operating system $300.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, well, the thing about Windows 8 and really the last couple of Mac OSs are the only time we've ever paid anything less than $100 for an OS that's from the commercial vendors.
I remember paying for development tools hundreds of dollars.
So maybe that's one reason why the price for software has come down, is because the barrier to entry to make it is less. And I think it's also because the vendors out there, it's been in their best interest to commoditize software to an extent. But also, there's just a certain value I think people place on Twitter, and I think $20 to interact with Twitter is just the value proposition isn't there for most people.
Certainly it's not. Right. But I do see a healthy market of, let's say, social media marketers. They do exist. It's a real job. Who have to manage a number of clients' Twitter accounts that this full-featured client would do the job for.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say this is more, even though it sounds strange, a pro-tweeter tool. I like that. I'm a pro-tweeter. Nice.
Yeah, there's people. I mean, I could probably almost claim, oh, I need Twitter for my business because that's how my audience interacts with me, and that's how I announce new show releases. But even then, I'm like, the web works.
Yeah, I mean, I use their apps on my iPad. Actually, they're $5. I think that's a good price for a Twitter client. But this got me thinking, and I did my research. I did my homework this time about software pricing.
Okay.
Because I've gone on about the race to the bottom. There's been plenty of articles. There's been blog posts, rages, lectures, talks. I've been to local meetups where people are just raging out, where they're preaching the gospel of higher volume but lower revenue.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did some examining. So the general or the accepted wisdom of the app stores in general is you're going to sell your product for less money. So your $20 app will probably be charged $5 for. But you'll make it up in volume. So instead of having 100 customers, you'll have 500. It's pretty good, right? But no one has ever proven that.
Huh.
In fact, there have been far more failures than successes. So I said, well, let me do a little bit of research on the area that I think higher prices will survive the longest, the Mac App Store. So I took a look, and I went to, now, the problem is they have categories called top paid and top grossing. Top paid, they don't tell you how they determine that, right? It doesn't necessarily mean you sold the most, or they haven't claimed that. So I went top grossing because it's pretty simple. You've made the most money. I did some interesting math. So the lowest price for any app on the top grossing is $20. At least at the time I did this last week. But because of some of the outliers, the higher priced apps, the median price is more like $70. Another interesting fact, even though we've been pushed to making, quote, apps, so smaller single-focus products, the apps that are making money are still more traditional. They are higher in price, and they are more full-featured. So I kind of took a look at that,
and they're the very, very top are all apples in this.
Right. I also excluded, I should say I excluded Mountain Lion from my tally, but
Okay.
they are all apples, and I do see the ranking has changed a bit since I did it.
It probably fluctuates daily depending on what's being
I'm sure
purchased.
it does fluctuate daily, yeah. So what's interesting was there were no games in the top 5, but for one, or top 10, but for one when I did it.
Interesting to see Tweetbot. Right, it's Tweetbot's.
Tweetbot was in the top 10. Yeah.
Yeah. They're still doing really good, especially if you take out the Apple apps.
So, I mean, let's say we exclude all the Apple apps, the median price would still be above $20, right? I'm just very quickly looking at your screen.
Yeah. I'd say there's a couple outliers. There's a 99 center, and a 499er. But
and then there's a $50 one right there.
Yeah, there's also some pretty expensive stuff, including Civilization 5, which is $19.99, and we have next to it is a $4.99, and then there's it's actually just kind of all over the map. Here's a $12.99.
Yeah, so it's definitely fluctuated since I did it. So let's say
here's a 40.
Let's even say the $20 mark isn't the low, right? I don't see too many 99 cents apps on your screen.
Here's an $80 one.
Right.
$19.99.
And these are the people who've made the most money or are making the most money.
Seems to be like some of the older games are at $9.99, and the newer stuff is at $19.99.
Yeah, so it doesn't reflect launch prices, which is annoying. Like I can tell you, most of those games you see launched at $60 or $50.
Exactly, like Star Wars, the Knights of the Old Republic, which is a few years old now. They're selling it for $9.99. But if this was, well,
it launched on the App Store at $20 though.
Yeah, so exactly. So if it was launch price, yeah. So it is interesting. Like they seem to be sort of setting a precedent. You can re-release old software in the App Store, but you have to sell it for cheap. If you want to put something new in here, you can charge more like 20 plus.
But the definition of cheap is not 99 cents to make money. And that's really my point. So that there is an argument for volume over price, but not to the extreme race to the bottom people have been going to with this 99 cents, $1.99, $2.99 pricing of full desktop applications.
Man, that win's really going crazy, isn't it?
Yeah. She likes her free apps, Sandy does, and she's really upset.
Yeah.
So I don't know what this necessarily means, right? I mean, I just did the math. I know what it means to me. And obviously I have a big bias. Bias is really big. It's like Sandy big. So I, choose to interpret it meaning that you should not price anything below $4.99. Or if you are, you should think about your product and perhaps develop it, unless it's, and sale pricing aside. Because on the app stores, all updates are free. Right? So remember, another traditional model that I'm sure many of you have suffered through is the $80 update pricing, which no longer exists on the App Store.
Yeah,
App Store.
That seems like the biggest long-term challenge for developers, right?
Right. So, and then that's going to be an issue, because even trying to do a pseudo update through in-app purchase is really frowned upon. It's just not the way to go.
Mm-hmm.
You may be asking, why am I talking about pricing this week?
Yeah, what is on your mind? Is there something you're thinking about?
I am going to be releasing something for free. And as always, I enjoy contradicting myself. Now, I am looking for a few alpha testers, and I'm looking to bring on an intern that could turn into an actual paid intern.
Oh, cool.
There is a trial period. It's kind of like going for varsity in high school, if you're familiar with that. And I will be 100% brutally honest why there's a trial period where I don't pay interns. I've paid interns before, and I've had to get rid of them and basically wasted money. I've paid for 2 weeks of work and got nothing out of it, so I'm sorry. Now, to apply, you can email me your resume and any GitHub links you have. This is Chris. Do you take interns on at Jupiter Broadcasting?
We have a couple of times.
How do you normally do that? Because right off the bat, I always paid, but I felt like actually, I hate to say it, 2 out of 3 were just not good.
Well, one of the people that's done it before was getting school credits for it, and that was his form of payment. So that was really great for us.
I'd be open to that as well.
And then the other one was just like, kind of based on hours.
Right. So now what I'm proposing or what I am doing, is a trial period for a set period of time, and then a hourly rate for part-time work.
I think that's really fair.
I think right, because I feel like that's fair, because
And then I also let them use this as a reference for when they go job
sure,
hunting.
of course,
Yeah.
And anything like that, you could put it in your portfolio, or whatever. Now, I'm looking for someone who knows them some C#.
Hmm.
It is not illegal to hire unpaid interns in the United States. It's technically, I'm not hiring an intern. You don't hire interns. But anyway,
Yeah. Someone that knows
Yeah.
C#.
C# and a little bit about ASP would be good. Now, I understand you're probably still in.
What are you making?
If you've done Azure, that's even better.
Okay.
But now I understand. I've been told I'm kind of a red foreman hard ass. I understand you're, likely if you're going for an internship or a cooperative learning, whatever you want to call it, you're in school and you don't know everything. That's fine. The biggest requirements are that you know some sort of source control. You know good programming practices, and you won't break Git. So that's key right there.
Okay. And how should they get a hold of you?
They can email me, or they can find me on the tool of the week.
Oh.
The alpha testers, yeah. So I'm looking for alpha testers. I'm going to put up a notice for that. Those aren't paid jobs. They're just people who get something early and for free.
That's cool. So you're asking really for two things. You're asking for people who might want to be a intern, and you're also asking people that might want to help you alpha test something. Now, do you have any requirements of software or hardware they'll need to be an alpha tester for you?
You need a web browser that's not IE6.
Okay. So there you go. If you qualify now, that might have just eliminated a lot of you from this running, but
yes. Additionally, for the intern, don't worry about not having the tools. I can provide you with that.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So get a hold of either Mike. You can also email the show, coderradio@jupiterbroadcasting.com.
Indeed, and send any GitHub profiles, any Bitbucket. Those, honestly, I care so little about your degree.
You just want to see some code?
Yeah, I want to see some code. I'm sending me your resume anyway, but I don't care.
Show me all the blueprints. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, that's cool. And so that's a tease. We're going to find out more later. Is this?
We are. I just like to address one question in the chat. It is. Okay. You don't have to move anywhere. So we're all virtual at Fingertip Tech Inc. We have an IRC channel. You work from your home, your school's cafe. I don't care. Yeah, as long as you get things done, I'm not going to be like. So that's the thing, right? That's why there's a trial period. As long as you can get an acceptable amount of work done in a reasonable amount of time, I basically trust you. And that's what it's all about.
That's nice, man. That's nice.
So it's your first go at contracting. I could be your client, and I am crazy.
Yeah, you're going to really make people want to try it now if you tell them that.
Yeah. Every crazy biz dev guy you've ever met, I'm like combining their powers.
Wow. All right. So, okay. So, but we don't get to hear anything more than that at this point.
Nope. You can, and the only small requirement is, so I actually hired a designer out of the JV community, and he's not in the United States. My bank has 4 times rejected paying him. So, if you are a foreigner, which I have no problems with, you have to accept money through PayPal. I just can't deal with this wire transfer nonsense anymore.
I know the wire transfer stuff is the worst.
And then I got a call from the bank saying, what are you doing?
Yeah, you're probably on some sort of terrorist list now.
Yeah, I'm gonna have the FBI is gonna be at my door tomorrow.
Yeah, you terrorist.
No,
you're white Al Qaeda over there. You're white Al Qaeda.
Yes, and in terms of hours, if you do well, it would be ongoing. It's a very large project.
Very cool. Somebody email this man. Email this man. Mm-hmm. And also, we need alpha testers. So email that man about being an alpha tester. If you have anything more modern than IE6.
Although, if you have Mosaic, I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, I'd be really curious. Boy, could you imagine how JupiterBroadcasting.com must look in Mosaic?
Just falls down.
Yeah, it would. It would just be, probably just crash the browser.
All right, so my book of the week, 101 Ways to Use Azure.
Yeah, right.
I'm not kidding. I actually am running this on Azure.
Oh, I believe you, but that's not what you have linked in the show notes.
Yeah, and again, to the chat room, I'm flexible. Whatever, I understand if you're a student, whatever you're available, we can talk about it. Just send me a CV or a resume. So the book is in fact Android Developers Cookbook. Now, this is not one of those books you read cover to cover.
Okay.
It's if you need to know how to do something, you search the index and it gives you an example and you build your own version of it.
Hmm.
To be honest, I love these cookbooks. Mainly because they have little, they call them recipes, and there's one for iOS, and I think there's a Windows Phone one, but I don't know.
Huh.
Where they have little UI patterns you can follow, and they show you how they do it, little tricks.
Oh, very nice.
These are worth their weight in gold.
Yes, yes.
Yes, yes. And Bane uses them. You know, his mask, right out of the cookbook.
Yes. Bane likes Android, yes.
Yes, yes, yes. Open source, yes, yes.
Open source.
You see Azure, you merely adopted open source. I miss Batman. Anyway, tool of the week is CoderWall. Now this ties in, Chris.
All right.
Check out the link. It's a
Coderwall.com/Dominic M.
Yes. Now, okay, that's my actual profile. It is a social network for programmers and indie development shops. Now, the idea, and they have achievements. So if you have open source GitHub projects, you get achievements with adorable animals based on what you've done. This is totally free. This is also a great way for teams to collaborate. They're very new. I have no relationship with them at all. I just thought it was fun, and they gave me little skunk achievements, which I thought was amazing.
And I can endorse you.
And you can endorse people you've worked with. So, and like if you end up interning with me and you do well, I would endorse you on this because I'm not a tool.
So this is like a sexed up LinkedIn meets Twitter?
It's fun LinkedIn, though, because then they have the thing like pro tips. So, like I messed up deploying Azure last night. And I put a pro tip on why I did it wrong and what I did wrong. So it's yeah, I guess it is like LinkedIn, but it's like a much more fun and casual, nerdy LinkedIn.
And way cleaner. Like there's so much less going on this page that it's so...
And there's no spam. It's very... I would almost say... So it's structured around the idea of an organization, right? You can be an independent or you can be an organization. Somewhere, Chris is scrolling through my profile, he could find Fingertip Tech Inc. and click on the company somewhere.
Oh, really? Is that in here? Really? Yes.
I think it is, yes. Like Heroku.
Oh, yes. You got a nice button right here. It says Fingertip Tech. Yeah. Yes.
So if you bring that up, I don't know what it will do.
It's like your whole company profile page, and I can see your individual team members.
Which is nice. I think it's cool for collaboration.
Here's a quote bubble where you say "ship or die."
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Again, this is one of those things. I could see it definitely getting a bit.
You have your technology stack on here.
Yes.
This is really well done.
Yeah. So their pitch is, it's a fun place to hang out with other developers, but also if you're looking for work, you can communicate directly with teams without having to go through recruiters, which I know we all love.
The design of this is really nice.
Yeah, it is exceptionally nice, and they have a few nice mobile apps as well. I know the iPhone ones.
It's stuff like this is why app.net's going to fail, right? Because well, really, I mean, if you're going to use Twitter, you're going to use maybe one other social network. Why not use one where your peer group is? And that'll be this. That's CoderWall. I mean, you're not going to go to app.net. Screw app.net. They're dead.
Well, one thing I like is you have up my pro tip about. So I messed up deploying Azure last night because I forgot to commit and to get the migration files.
Yeah.
Jackass. So I have that there. Next time that problem comes up, I can just say, I explain it, go look at it. It's almost like a form of, I don't know, like a handbook for a team that exists forever and is public so other people could share.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yes.
And what I like is the tag system involved, so now I can go look at everybody else's Azure pro tips.
Exactly.
That's kind of neat. So I can see, here you are, and here's somebody that's doing one about building connected Windows 8 apps with Windows Azure. And I can also look at your ASP.NET tag and see that, nobody's talking about ASP.NET. Poor ASP.NET.
Better than Rails. Rails.
So that is coderwall.com. That looks really cool. And I would be completely out of my element there. But you see...
You'd love it.
But
no, because
this would be
something
we should do this for a Linux type, group. I mean, this would be great for people talking about that kind of stuff.
True, kind of like pro tip.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have the proprietary driver, you're probably not going to be able to play games.
Pro tip.
Ouch.
Oh, and I can upvote your. I like this. This is nice. This is, and the UI is really well done too at CoderWall.
Yeah, it's very pretty, and we all know how I feel about.
How are they
pretty
going to
things.
make money? I don't know. But you know, the nice thing about it being targeted at guys like you is they probably will have a little more traction with more targeted advertising.
Well, I think they're gonna go kind of what Stack Overflow is trying to do, focus on the getting people jobs and helping companies poach other people's people.
Just taking a little off the top from that.
Yeah, I think that's what they're gonna do because Stack Overflow has. More and more I'm getting emails from Stack Overflow. Hey, we're a fancy new startup in New York.
Hey, girl.
Hey, girl. Hey. Wow, that's horrible.
Hey, man, I think we survived the whole show through the hurricane.
Survived.
You didn't lose connectivity or power.
No, it's been great. So I hope you guys enjoyed this very casual Coder Radio.
Yeah.
Next week will be a bit more in-depth and hardcore. We're going to be talking about ye old Windows 8, possibly.
Wow,
and
really?
Ye old WinRT. Yeah, we will be.
Well, then I guess we should give people a chance to give us their thoughts, good or bad. Send them in, coderradio@jupiterbroadcasting.com on Windows 8 and on the Surface.
And from the API development perspective, I mean.
Okay.
Not really about the Surface.
Really? Very good. Very good.
I've been studying the API for about a month and a half now, so I think I can talk about it.
But it would be very germane to have some Windows 8 and Surface type feedback at the top of that type of show.
We could do that. Send it in.
Yeah, I'd like to hear what people have to say on it, and especially if anybody's bought it. Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be nice to get a report from somebody that bought one?
I may have bought it by next week.
Whoa.
So,
Whoa.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, make sure you buy yourself an extra MagSafe power adapter with it, because those are handy to have around the house. So, all right.
Wait, they're calling it MagSafe?
No, I don't think so.
Oh.
But it is a magnetic power connector that looks like the MagSafe L connector. It's
But
really
I have
fun.
like 8 of those. Can I just use the ones I have?
I don't think so. I think it has an extra connector on it. Yeah, I know. All right. Well,
All right.
everyone, we want you to tune in live with Coder Radio. We do it live over at jblive.tv on Mondays at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, and then we release the show for download later Monday over at jupiterbroadcasting.com. Of course, the email is coderradio@jupiterbroadcasting.com. You can find links to many of the things we talked about in the show notes. And Mr. Dominic, thanks for a great show. Good luck with the storm. And
Thank you. Sorry about that.
It's all right. It's all right. I missed you. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in this week's episode of Coder Radio. See you right back here next week. Sandy permitting.